Welcome to episode 3 of the Run Republic podcast with me, your host, Kev Groom. This week our guest is Tom Owens. Tom rediscovered the joy of running several years ago just before lockdown. Since then he has gone on to complete some of the biggest races in Ireland and joined a 100 mile club. Tom, along with fellow runner and friend PJ Meehan, is credited with creating Munster's first backyard ultra when Hellevation took place in Tipperary this month. We really hope you enjoy our chat with Tom, and if you do, please leave a review on whatever platform you are listening on. So let's get into this week's episode of the Run Republic podcast with Tom Owens. Tom Owens, thanks very much for joining us on the Run Republic podcast and taking the time to chat to us today.
No problem at all. Pleasure to be here.
First of all, we'll get to Hellevation and your journey, I suppose, into the ultra running scene and all your races, etc. a bit later on. But just give us a kind of a brief background for those people listening. I suppose, how did you start running? What made you get into it?
Yeah, okay. I think when I was a young fella, I'd done a lot of running. I ran for Tullamore Harriers. I'm originally from County Offaly. And I would have ran with the Tullamore Harriers kind of from about 14 or 15 up until I was 19 or 20. I would have been more middle distance, 1,500 meters, 3,000, 5Ks. That'd be about it. And then, obviously, as you get a bit older, you kind of stop the running and you get more interested in other things. And so the running went sideways. And I gave it up for many, many years. And then I'm 46 now, so just at lockdown, round about lockdown, a couple of years before lockdown, I had a small bit of a health scare, and the doctor said to me, you need to lose a bit of weight. I was 18 and a half stone, and I wasn't in any way healthy. I was just eating a dashboard diet. I was on the road a lot. So I decided I was going to try and get fit, and I went and I joined a couple of gyms, and I done a couple of HIIT sessions, and the weight started to come off me. And in the middle of lockdown, myself and my wife were before lockdown, myself and my wife were walking down the Blue Way in Clonmel. And I said to her, I'd love to run some of this. And she said, why? And I said, I don't know. It's just been a long time since I went running, and I'd like to see if I could run some of this. And up until then, I was doing a small bit of running as part of the training, but I'm talking 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres if I went out for a run. And I just said I'd like to do it. And I saw a sign up on the river that said 21 kilometres to Carrick-on-Shore from Clonmel. So I said to her, I'm going to run that for charity. I said, I'm going to run the Blue Way for charity, thinking 21 kilometres, it's a half marathon. We'll get into training and we'll do that for charity. And that was going to be a humongous run for me. So I came back home, and there was a buddy of mine living nearby called PJ Meehan, and I knew that he was doing a small bit of running. He'd done a couple of halves, and I said to him, would you help me train for a run on the Blue Way? I'm going to do it for charity. And he said, yeah. So then I went on to social media, and I put it on social media that I was going to run the entirety of the Blue Way for charity and to get donating. And I'd say about an hour after I put it up on social media, PJ came back to me and he says, Tom, did you actually look at how long this Blue Way is? And I said, yes, 21 kilometres, Clonmel to Carrick. And he said, Tom, the Blue Way starts in Cahir, mate. So it's actually 52 kilometres. But because I'd announced it, I went, all right, well then that's what we're running. So we better get training. And that was it. That was the reason I started running in the first place. So I started training with him, and we roped a couple of other lads into it to try and do it. And then lockdown happened, and we weren't actually able to do the run along the Blue Way. But we decided that we would do the 50K within a 5K radius of our homes. And unfortunately, where we live in Tipperary, it's extremely hilly, not flat like the Blue Way. So we'd made it even tougher on ourselves. And we did it. We did it about 4 years ago. And we done it in 4 hours and 50 minutes or something. And I was absolutely delighted. And I swore after that I was never running another step. And about 2 days later, PJ rang me and said, why don't we try this? And it was the Tralee 100K in Kerry in the September. So we started training for that. So I suppose from then it just got bigger and bigger. And we kept saying, well, what's next? And can we go further? And can we go longer? And what can we do? And I fell in love with it. I just fell absolutely in love with running and training and getting out in the evening and clearing the head. And I never understood when people used to tell me, oh, running's great for clearing the head, because I despised it. For me, running was just hardship. I couldn't breathe properly. I was shagged after it. I was overweight. I just didn't like the idea of it. But the more I did it, the more I kind of got that feeling. And yeah, I haven't stopped since.
It's interesting that you say that. From the outsiders looking in, it's always, like you say, people say, why would you run this? I can't run, I couldn't even run 1 mile, 1K, or whatever it is. But kind of once you start, as you say, it's kind of, you get the bug, you do something, you do an event, you do a 5K, you do a 10K. It seems to be a pattern as well that when you do something like, say, your 50K you mentioned there, even after my first marathon, I said, that's it. Like, I'm probably not going to do another one. And then on the bus on the way home, when you're have the credit card out again.
Yeah, you do. You see, this is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Tralee 100K, then that was you thought 50K was grand, so I'll double it then. Do the 100K.
Yeah. Yeah, he just came back and said, why don't we double it and try that? And I went, all right, let's give that a go. And sure, everyone thought we were stone mad. I mean, I think he's 2 years younger than me. I better get it right or he'll kill me. But I think he's about 2 years younger than me. So I don't think he had turned 40 at that stage. I was 42 and we just said, yeah, let's go and do it. And so we started training for that. And he's from Kerry originally, so it was an excuse to go home for a while. But yeah, we went down then and we ran that, and we had set ourselves a pace for it, and that was the pace we stuck with, and we came in just under 10 hours. So
just under 10 hours for 100K. It's impressive. Do you know what I mean?
We were very, very happy with it, I can promise you. But it was a bit of a shock at the beginning because that 100K started off so fast. I mean, there was fellas, they took off from the start line and we thought, oh, good God, we're going to be left right at the back. Because again, when we done the 50K, it was only the two of us side by side. It wasn't a race. It was a charity thing. This was our first ever race. And we thought, okay, we're going to be left for dead. But it was interesting because we pulled most of them back. I think we finished 7th and 8th. Officially in that event, so we were thrilled with it.
And did that give you a good bit of confidence then, even top 10 or something like that?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think confidence is something that either of us have ever been overly short of. We have the mentality that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to go and do it. It's that simple. I won't put my name to something if I'm not fully intending on actually achieving it. So when we said we were going to do it, we did it. But yes, when we done the 50K, we got huge confidence. My God, we've just ran a 50K. Like, that's an ultra marathon, and I'd never ran more than kind of a 10K. Now, don't get me wrong, during the training for the 50K, I had. But again, up to that, I'd never ran I'd never been involved in a race since I was a kid. So when the 100K came around, it was just, let's get this done and let's get it done. I wasn't racing anybody else. Do you get what I mean? But coming in at 7th or 8th and seeing people who, when I saw them on the starting line, I thought, these are experienced, seasoned runners. They're built like runners. These guys look like they could run forever. And when you're finishing and they're not, or when you're coming in 7th or 8th place, or people are cheering you on, you get this innate confidence that actually, yeah, I'm doing all right here. This is a sport that I'm somewhat half decent at for my age.
The things I love about ultra running is that I'm not too long into, probably 3 or 4 years doing the ultras, but I've kind of accepted that I'm not going to be a 15, 16 minute 5K runner. You know what I mean? But I know that if I can, slog it out in the mountains, or do loops or whatever it is, I've talked to so many people in running over the years, and the ultra running is just completely different. There's so many variables, there's nutrition and pace, and whereas your shorter races are bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I know, like I think I've done a 3:21 marathon. I know that for me to get lower than that, I'm going to have to absolutely burst every part of me to get to that, to knock that below that. Do you know what I mean? Like the work that I would have to do to get below that for me is like horrendous in my eyes. Whereas if you said to me, listen, can you run 200 miles across a mountain? Can you run 150 miles in a loop over and over and over again? Can you do X, Y, and Z? that to me is a hell of a lot more achievable and something that I'm more interested in. But I also think that there's a lot more support within that ultra running community to help you achieve that than there is in a marathon. Like if I was running a marathon against you and we're both at 3:20, number one, you're not able probably to give me support and advice as we're tipping along. Whereas on the mountains, you are. And you can get me through the next 2, 3, 4, 5 miles until I come out of the bit of a slump and stay going. So that's why I love doing it.
After your Tralee 100k, then am I right in saying Castle Ward was your next big challenge, last one standing?
Yeah, we did Castle Ward. That was our first ever last one standing. That was absolute chaos. That was in the middle of Storm Dennis. And again, we were just intrigued. Like it wasn't, what intrigued us about that was there was no finish line. Like it wasn't a case of you're going to run 100k, you're going to run 70k, you're going to run whatever. It was literally just, can you run in a loop over and over and over again until you're not able to run anymore? And again, that intrigued both of us. So we signed up for it, not knowing anything really about backyard, but we did a bit of study on it and we looked at it and we trained specifically for it. But then come the day, it was Storm Dennis, and we went up on the Friday night. We set up our tent. We'd never set up a tent before. So we'd set up a tent. We put all of our gear into the tent. We put all of our food into the tent. And we went back to the B&B very pleased with ourselves that when we got there the following morning at 10 o'clock, everything would be ready and we'd be ready to race. And unfortunately, when we got there, our tent had blown down. All of our gear was absolutely soaked to the skin, including our runners, our T-shirts, our spare socks, our food. Everything was destroyed. And we had to run as we were with the runners that we had on our feet and the shorts and gear that we had brought back to the hotel for the race. And in the meantime, then my son came up to crew. He'd never crewed before. And he spent the night and the day trying to get clothes dry so that we could change and get us food and so on. So yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire, that Castle Ward. But we still finished. I think PJ did 17 loops or 18 loops, and I did one more, and that was the both of us out. But we had given everything, or so we thought at that point. But that was our first foray, into backyard running.
Just kind of give us a brief synopsis of what's required.
So the backyard ultra, it's a format where it's a 4.2 mile or a 6.7 kilometer loop, or an out and back, but it's that distance, and you start it on the hour. So if you start at midday, you have an hour to finish that distance, that loop or that out and back. If you do that in 30 minutes, brilliant. You've got a half an hour's rest. If you do it in 55 minutes, you've got 5 minutes rest. But you must be ready to go again on the hour, on the next hour. And you just continually do that until there's only one runner left in the race. And then that runner must do one loop on his own more than everybody else in order to be declared the winner.
It's a format that has really taken off over the last probably 4 or 5 years. And even the last one standing up the north there, and I'm kind of glued to them every year. It's I call it kind of reality TV for runners. It's just,
there's no question.
You're waking up checking the phone. Who's out? Who's in? Is Thompson going? So it must have been even harder, like as you said, with the conditions. On a bright sunny day, maybe it would have been different, but when you're starting off with wet gear and
it was horrendous. It was horrendous, and it was a nice course, but the weather made the course horrendous. Like it was out across a couple of fields and then in through a woods, but unfortunately there was one hill in the woods that on a normal day you're just running up kind of a clay or a mucky kind of an incline. But given the conditions and given the amount of runners that were running through it, loop after loop after loop, by lap 10, it was a stream flowing down and rivulets all the way down through that muck. So you were literally grabbing a hold of a branch to pull yourself up that hill to get up onto flat ground so that you could finish the loop. It was chaotic. It never stopped raining from loop 1 until I think we went away at loop 18 and we came back to see the finish from about loop 25 or 26, which is hour 25 or 26. And I think it had stopped raining about 22 hours into it. So the ground was horrendous. The conditions were horrendous, but we loved it. Like it was I don't know. We kind of said to each other afterwards, yeah, we did 18, but we did 18 in horrendous conditions. Imagine what we could do if we had decent conditions. And again, it was looking to see could we do that again.
Do you think you would have went further if the conditions had been better? But it sounds like you definitely would.
Who knows? We have done since, but on that given day, like I've no idea. I can't answer that, because I will say that my body just at 18, my body just stopped. Like I just couldn't go any further. And I came back into the tent. And don't get me wrong, even though I knew at that time I couldn't go any further, I was absolutely fuming with myself because I had stopped at 18. Like we went up there with the full intention of hitting 24 hours and hitting the 100 miles because we had done 100K previously. So we wanted to do the 100 miles. Now we both broke 100K in that race, but it still wasn't enough for us because we'd gone with the intention of doing the 100 mile.
So after Castle Ward, then what was your next big challenge?
I think after Castle Ward, what did we do? Oh, we done the Wexford 24. I signed up for the Wexford 24 and we signed up for the Kerry Ultra Way all at the same time.
You might as well get two done.
Yeah, well, the way we looked at it was the Wexford 24 hour was in May. The Kerry Ultra Way was in September. So the Wexford 24 would give us good standing for getting. I remember we still hadn't hit 24 hours of running at this stage. So we thought it'd be a good training run just for sleep deprivation, etc., and for getting mileage in the legs and see how we go. And then we decided to do Kerry Way purely because we'd never done anything on the mountain before. And we'd heard it was the toughest race in Ireland. So we said we'd give the two of them a go. So we signed up for the Wexford the Wexford 24 hour, their Festival of Running. And unfortunately, PJ actually ended up getting ill and had to have surgery a couple of days beforehand. So the plan was that he would arrive down at about in time for the 6 hour, because Wexford Festival, they do 24 hour, 12 hour, 6 hour. I think they do 3 hour as well, and maybe 1 hour. But he said he'd do the 6 hour and he'd run with me for the 6 hours, and just to keep me going at that stage. My son again was crewing for me, and my daughter. They all crewed that day. But unfortunately, what actually happened was PJ came down at 6 a.m. and realized that he actually felt okay. He'd had surgery the day before, and he decided he was actually going to give it a crack. So we ran together for a bit, and then he took off, and I was on my own for the last 6 hours, and he'd done 53K or something in the 6 hours a day after surgery, and I did 102.9 miles. So I'd broken the 100 miler for the first time.
Was that your goal going into it, or did you have a distance in mind?
Yeah. I had the 100 mile. I said to myself, I'm going to do the 100 mile in the 24 hours, no matter what. And you know what, Kev? I think if I was doing it again, I wouldn't put that goal on it, because I think once I hit the goal of the 100 mile, at that point, I was like, okay, I've it done. And I slowed down, or I actually stopped with about 15, 20 minutes to go. And only started running again with 5 minutes to go, just to add a little bit to it. But I'd gone through the 100 mile on one of the loops or something. So yeah, I think me putting that limit I always find that if I have a target, when I get towards that target, that's when I start to feel how tired I am, if that makes sense. Whereas if I'd have said it was 110 miles was the target, at 100 miles, I would have just kept going for another whatever many miles I could have gone. Do you know what I mean? Hit or miss. So yeah, I done the 102 miles in that, 102.9, which I was absolutely thrilled with. Absolutely thrilled. But I was buckled after it.
It's interesting that you mentioned the the 24 because I'm actually signed up for the 12
Are you
this year.
for Wexford this year? Yeah, I
I'll be there.
promised Paddy. Paddy texted me after Belfast to Dublin, and he said, "Sure, I'll see you in a few weeks for the 24." And I said, "No, you won't, Paddy." I said, "If anything, I'll come down and I'll help you marshal it, but I ain't running it." But there's a little bit of me that's kind of going, would I be ready for it? But I don't think I would.
So just to explain, it's a 1.3 kilometer loop
Loop of a lake,
and it's literally as much as you can get in
Yes,
within
it
your
is.
24, within your 12, your 6, your 3, or 1, whatever your chosen
and
time is.
It's a brilliant format because, again, it's not a race. Well, it is for the top lads that are really going for it. But I find with any of these things, it's a race for you. Like, you set your target and it's you racing against you. And everyone's there cheering you on. It's, as you say, it's a 1.3 kilometer loop. So everybody sees you at every point. It's and for crewing, it's so easy because they're seeing you so often. They're actually seeing you too often. You don't stop for your crew half the time. But it's set in incredible grounds. The peacocks, as you're running around, are amazing to look at, except for when they get in your way. But yeah, it's a fabulous festival, and Paddy's done a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, actually. Did you
Have
have
you done
kind
it
of
before?
I haven't done it before now. I have done 12 hours on, I did it on a 400 meter track 3 years ago for charity. So,
you see, I am in awe of anybody who does that. The idea, when I run loops of my local GAA field, the thought of running that for 12 hours absolutely puts me off. So anybody that does it around a 400 meter track over and over and over again, that's something that I probably will give a try to at some point, because I just think that's harder. I think that's much harder. You put me on a road and say run 100 miles from here to there, that to me is easier than going down there and running 50 miles around a 100 meter track. Don't know why.
yeah, the thinking behind it was, it's the track is literally 2 minutes from the house. The club is here. Friends and family were coming down.
It's
as
flat.
I say, it's completely flat. Now, as it happened, it was the hottest day of the year, which really didn't help. I was putting on sun cream literally every 4 laps, which is obviously a mile. So every mile, sun cream and get water in. So that obviously added loads of time on.
And you're like me, you don't have the hair to stop the sun cream running down into the eyes.
I had a couple of different hats just to keep the
Vaseline on the eyebrows.
To keep the head, and plenty of Vaseline as well.
Vaseline
so to get
eyebrows will stop it coming down into your eyes.
To get your 100 miles, then did you have to structure it every hour? Then in your head, were you thinking, okay, I have to hit my whatever miles or kilometers every hour here, or were you constantly checking the watch? Or were you?
In my head, I was going, do you know what? It is like if I'm doing 4 to 5 miles an hour every hour, I'm on track for it. And again, it's not even. We're very, I don't know, we're precise that we will literally sit down and work out before a race our timings. On any run that we do, we will sit down and go, okay, this is what we got to be starting off at, especially over that kind of a distance, because we know we will slow down as the race goes on. So we'll start off that little bit quicker to try and grab a few minutes on the other end that we can slow down to a certain pace and still hold what we're looking for. So we did that. But again, plans can go out the window when things go wrong. And there was a few times during that 100 miles, I don't mind saying it, because it is only a 1.3 kilometer loop, I found that extremely tiring and repetitive. And there was a couple of times during the night that luckily my son actually walked alongside me for a half a loop, talking to me and getting me back into it, because I was ready to kind of say, you know what, I can do it again. This isn't. I'm not going to get there, or I'm not on track for it. And then a couple of pep talks later, you're back on track for it. So you've got to allow for the points during it where you will actually have a bit of a dip, but then you got to pull yourself back out of that dip again. But yeah, we did. We had a strategy for it, and we do that for all our races.
What was the strategy for Kerryway Ultra then? Because that's
whatever
that's
it was,
different kettle of fish altogether.
Well, whatever it was, it didn't work for me because I had to pull out at about 80 miles in. I'll tell you about that. But Yeah, we just decided we were going to do mountains, and we'd never ran mountains before in our lives. So we started training after the Wexford. We gave ourselves a week or two to recover from Wexford, and then we decided one Saturday morning we were going up the Cummeragh Mountains. Somebody gave us a route on the Cummeragh Mountains, which was 20 miles. We decided we were going up the Cummeragh Mountains to see what mountain running was like. We brought no sticks. We brought no food. We thought it's only a 20-mile run. It won't take us that long. We brought 2 bottles of water. It was sunny at the bottom of the mountain. And when we got to the top, it was absolutely horrendous wind and rain. And we nearly got blown off the mountain. And I remember saying to PJ, okay, this is a lot more dangerous than we're used to. We need to figure out what this mountain running is all about. So we spoke to a few different runners that have done mountain running in the past. We got some advice off them. And we structured our training all over the summer just purely on mountains and learning to run on mountains and learning how to run on technical trail downhill, which is a whole different ball game, and how to climb quicker using the sticks. We'd never ran with sticks, how to run with poles, etc. And we went down to Kerry, and the whole plan of Kerry was to come in under 36 hours. That was our target. You have the 40-hour time limit. For anyone that doesn't know, it's the whole ring of Kerry, and it takes in pretty much all the peaks, with the exception of McGillicuddy Reeks. Stunning scenery. Like we recce'd every single piece of that run over the summer. Like we went down at 4 or 5 different occasions, parked the car on one side of one village, parked another one at the other side of the mountain, and we would just run across the mountain and recce every single piece of it, so that when we went down, there was none of it that we were unfamiliar with. We ran down there during the night. We recce'd a couple of sections of it at night time, because the ones that we would be running through the night, and just prepared solely for Kerry Ultra Way. But then unfortunately we were running along absolutely fine, and then coming into Sneem, we were coming down a technical trail, and I kicked a rock up into the air, probably about 15 miles outside Sneem. And I kicked it with my left foot, and I actually broke the metatarsal on my left foot. But didn't realise I'd broke it, carried on into Sneem, and just realised I couldn't get up another hill. So I had to withdraw. And that's the one that still eats at me. It's the only one that I've ever withdrawn from. And it still eats up at my soul, because PJ kept going and finished it. And I was there at the finish line, and it was incredible. But I was just very, very annoyed that I didn't actually complete that one.
Do you think you still had enough in the tank, bar the injury to get
whether I had enough in the tank or not, I had enough in the head. Like I was ready to stay going. And my crew that time was my son Ben and PJ's brother Michael. And they wanted to take the shoe off and check the shoe. And I said, no, I'll stay going. And I went off after PJ, and I probably got up through the town of Sneem, and just where you turn up into the hills, I started up there, and the foot just wouldn't hold me. And I just made the decision, if I go up this mountain on this foot, I may not come down off it. And that's irresponsible. So I turned back. But yeah, it broke my heart to turn back.
DNFs are always kind of hard to take, but I suppose you do learn from them, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, there's nothing I could do. It was a broken foot. It is what it is. I had to go to the hospital and get it x-rayed and get the whole check done, and they thought maybe there was not sepsis, something else in the leg in the foot as well from the break. But yeah, it is what it is. You move on, and if you want to, you go back at it and you try it again another time, which may still be in the cards, but I think my family will have something to say about that.
So after that, you picked yourself up and you went back up north then to Florida Manor.
We went back up to Florida Manor, for another last one standing. We said, look, our previous last one standing was 18. We wanted to do 24 on our last one standing. So we said we'll give that a go, and we went back up, and thankfully the weather was much better. The grounds was interesting. The loop, unfortunately, wasn't a full loop. It was 2 loops in order to make the distance up, which was also quite playing in your head, because you were going back around it twice. But yeah, that one was much more successful. We, I think there was only about 7 of us in that hit 24 hours, and then we pulled out. We timed out on the 26th loop, so we completed 25. But I was absolutely thrilled with it, and it got us onto it got us an invite then onto the Irish team for the Four Nations the following year.
Yeah, that leads me on to the Four Nations then. It must have been an honour, I suppose, to put on the green jersey.
Oh, without a doubt. When Sammy contacted me about it, I said, "Sammy, you absolutely sure? Like, I'm 45 years of age. What are you thinking? Like, there's got to be people that are better at this than us." And he said, "Look, you earned it. If you want it, it's there." And we said, "Absolutely, and massive honour." I mean, I'm not going to represent Ireland in a whole lot of things at this age. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it was phenomenal to be involved. We had an extremely strong team going over. I think we finished second overall in the team event. It was a brutal course. It's known as a beautifully brutal course. It was on the side of a mountain in Wales.
Did you feel more pressure or less pressure that you were in a kind of a team rather than just doing your laps?
Do you know what? Not really. No, not really. Like, I put myself under pressure anyway. Because I want to do well in any race that I go into. And all I know is that on the day, I can only do what I'm able to do on that given day. If something goes wrong, something goes wrong. And it did go wrong for me that day. I got awful cramp in my legs. I think maybe 9 or 10 loops in, and I timed out. I wanted to stay going, but I just couldn't get back down the mountain in time, and I timed out on one of the loops. But the cramp lasted for about 2 or 3 hours afterwards. But I don't necessarily feel the pressure. I'll put it this way. When I finished earlier than I wanted, I did feel I'd let the team down, but I didn't feel the pressure going into it of being part of that team, if that makes sense.
You mentioned still an amazing achievement, though. I think I'm a bit like yourself. I think I saw the teams and a few different things over the years about, getting through to represent Ireland. And I think I'm a bit like you. This might be my only chance is ultra running.
Yeah.
To wear the green jersey for Ireland, because God knows I won't be wearing a green jersey for anything else.
Yeah, nor I, not a chance.
You mentioned Sammy and Adrian, who are
Yeah.
brothers up the north there in the Atlas running, which leads me nicely on to your Dublin to Belfast. Before we talk about that, it is one I have tried once and DNF'd once, so I know absolutely all about it. But for anyone else who doesn't know about it, it's Dublin to Belfast. It's 172 kilometers, and was it 36 or 30 hours this year?
30.
30, yeah, it was 30 when I did the previous years. Before I tried it, it was 36, and then they dropped it down to 30.
Yeah,
so I made it to 78 miles, and then I was kind of goosed at that stage. So how did your one go?
I'll be honest with you, it was probably the toughest race that I've ever done. I actually found it tougher and harder than the Kerryway Ultra. I know I DNF'd on the Kerryway Ultra, but I think I had plenty in the tank. But I think Dublin to Belfast, absolutely, it battered me. It was a fabulous day. It like, the lads are great, as you know. They run a good show. But we started off at James's Gate, 12 o'clock last Friday, fresh as a daisy, everything, all the training done. I was very confident that I would do well. My aim was to come in top 10 if I could, and hopefully to try and get it in the 107. It's 172 kilometers, but it's 107 miles. So I wanted to hit the 100-mile club again, but I wanted to do the 107 in under the 24 hours. And I started off at the pace that I wanted, and everything was going great up through Balbriggan and Drogheda into Dunleer, which was the first checkpoint. You had to be there before 10 o'clock. I think I went through there at about 20 past 7. So I was way ahead of what the cutoff was, and I was on track for my 24 hours, and everything was going swimmingly. And then I came to Newry. And Newry, when you get to Newry, because it's Dublin to Belfast, your crew can actually meet you anywhere along the road. Right? They can meet you whenever you want them to meet you. So that was great. But once you got to Newry, there's a section along the canal in Newry that brings you out to a place called Points Pass. I think that's how you
That's
pronounce
where
it.
I finished.
Is it Points Pass?
Yeah.
So you know that canal route.
Yeah, I was with 2 other chaps. They kind of got me through to that point. They got me through the night because I was on my own, and
Yeah.
we teamed up, and we got each other through 6 or 7 hours. We got to
Yeah.
Newry, and then Points Pass, and then I was goosed by that point. And then the marshal there, Declan, he was at his car, and he said, "Go on, keep going. You're doing great." And I said, "That's it. I'm done."
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was going into the Europa Hotel. He was finished his marshal duties, and he was
Yeah.
driving into the Europa Hotel in the centre of Belfast, and I had a hotel room booked in the Europa Hotel. So you can imagine how easy that decision was.
Oh, without a
when
doubt.
he
Yeah.
when he said jump in the car. There's a can of Coke. I'll put the heater on for you, because I was shivering.
Yeah.
I was freezing. I was wet. I was contemplating knocking into people's houses, offering to pay money to give me a lift to Belfast. It was at that stage. But I know the
Yeah.
exact point you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a real
Oh,
tough section.
well, that section, when I went down that canal, and I knew that I wouldn't be seeing my crew on that canal, because on that section, as I said, it's nearly a half. It's a half marathon, I think, of a canal run. And so they had said, look, we'll see you at the far end. If we can get to see you somewhere along the way, we will, but we're probably not going to. So I just put the headphones in, and I listened to a couple of podcasts. I actually listened to the podcast with Les Lazarus from Barclay Marathons and Ian Keith the whole way down along. And I was listening to Ian Keith talking about backyards and running and mad distances. And that kind of kept me going until I came out of Points Pass, and PJ and Ben were there. And I said, how far more have we to go? And they said, no, we're still a long way away. And I was starting to get bet. Like you, I was just starting to get bet. And at that point, they said, Tom, we're going to meet you every 3 or 4 miles now, as opposed to every 7. And I couldn't figure out why. And I asked them, and they said, don't worry about it, we'll meet you. And then they took off in the car. And then I realized why, because the section, as you come out of there and you head for Banbridge, it is all this, like it's all hills. It's up and down and up and down. And it was brutal. And then you go through Banbridge and you come out onto the A1. And at that stage, I was hobbling. Like my legs had locked up. I was gone tired. I was gone sore. My lower back was starting to pain me. And when I got onto the A1, I realized that I still had well over 50k before I was back in Belfast itself. So there was some dark moments on that A1 as Arctic lorries and cars and 2 lanes of traffic were driving past you at 100 kilometers an hour, and you're just trying to stay steady on the hard shoulder and not fall out in front of them. So it was a brutal race, but at the same time, it was an incredible run, because I did it for charity. My mother passed away in July last year, and I decided I was doing it for the Irish Kidney Association and the Irish Cancer Society. And my dad had planned to run the last half a kilometer with me. So I knew that I couldn't stop, because he was standing at a petrol station in the middle of Belfast waiting for me to come up and run the last half a kilometer with me. And he's 75 years of age. So I wasn't 74. I wasn't letting him down and not getting there. So I just had to stay moving. But that last 20 miles was horrendously slow. I missed out on the 24-hour. I done it in 25 hours and 1 minute. It was still my fastest time to get the 100 miles. I got that in 23 hours and 40 minutes. But then it took me, 23 hours and 40. So it took me an hour and 21 minutes to do 7 miles. So you can see how slow that was in the end. It was a very slow ending, but incredible.
It is
incredible.
It's as I said, it's a brutal race, but it's just such a test of mind and body. And it says you had motivation enough there to meet your dad at the finish line there. I think that's sometimes it takes
the road
something
shred your
like
legs.
that.
Yeah, the road like absolutely shredded my legs, because the 24-hour in Wexford and the 24-hour that I had done in Florence Court, like they were on gravel, or they were on a bit of trail, or there was a small bit of road involved, but there wasn't a whole pile. This Dublin to Belfast was just solid road, and I didn't realise how much of a toll that was going to take on your legs as you were going. But what I was fascinated by and so pleased, we talk about the ultra running community, but the community in general, like as we were going outside Balbriggan Runners Club were standing at the beginning of Balbriggan, cheering on all the runners, offering water to them. They've nothing to do with this race. There was none other. I don't think there was any other runners in the race. Maybe there was, but they were cheering on everyone and supporting everyone and giving them. As we came into Dundalk, a man and his wife came out of their house with 2 bowls of pineapple, which is a revelation, by the way. Pineapple when you're running, because it gives you that sugar hit and water, and it was incredible. And then when I came into Banbridge at 5 o'clock in the morning, a random stranger came out of his house and said, if you need an actual bathroom to use, you can come into my house and use the bathroom. Like, incredible support for runners. And then as I came into Lisburn on the Saturday morning, a lady actually pulled up in the petrol station, and she came over to me and said, are you okay? She says, I was watching you coming down the road, and she says, I can see you're under pressure. Would you like a lift somewhere? And I promise you, Kev, I was tempted to get into that car. But I said, no, we can't. But yeah, the community were incredible. The amount of people that were beeping the horns as you're driving past, you don't realize how much of a boost that gives you until you need that bit of a boost.
Yeah, it's amazing how the small things, even by, as you said, random strangers, can just mean so much and keep you going. So from one really tough event to another, which is one that you and PJ, I think, you organised there, Hellevation. Where did the idea come from that?
When we were over in Wales, Sammy mentioned to us that he wanted to organise a kind of an All-Ireland series, that he was getting a bit fed up with the fact that there was only a few backyards in Ireland. The only ones really were the ones up the north, and then Barry and John's over in the Dublin Mountains. And he said, what I'd love to have is I'd love to have one in Munster, I'd love to have one in Connacht, and then we'll have the 4 provinces go against each other and challenge each other and see how we get on. And I thought this was a great idea. So myself and PJ volunteered to do the Munster Backyard Ultra. And again, no experience of race directing, no experience of what was needed. And we just said, look, let's get on it. So we had a ready-made place because we train in Grange Woods. That's where we do all of our training for the last one standing. We knew that it's very, very hilly. Like, there is a lot of elevation in it. And so we decided to call it Hellevation. And that's where the name came from. And then we went and we spoke with the landowners, and we spoke with the Coffee Coop, who were incredible support to us. They have a premises there with a trailer serving coffees and food and so on. And they gave us their premises and told us, yeah, work away. And that's where the idea came from.
And were you kind of anticipating, regards to people signing up, were you worried that there wasn't going to be enough? What was your expectation?
No, absolutely. I mean, we're used to running in Belfast, and in Belfast you could have anything from 30 runners up to 100 runners sign up to a race. So we opened up the entries probably in September, October maybe, and we had 1 or 2 fellas sign up to it straight away. And we thought, this is great. And then it went silent until Christmas time. And in January, we were still only we were probably up to 5 or 6. And I kind of thought, this isn't going to go ahead if we don't get some numbers. But I think what a lot of it was, we spoke to a lot of runners. And when PJ done the, what's it called? The Waterful BMF in January, which is the Backyard Ultra on the mountains, the marathon loop. When he did that, a lot of the runners down there said, oh yeah, we were going to sign up, but we didn't think anybody was going to sign up. So we kind of holding off. So then we just said, right, we got to get good on social media. So we started putting it out on social media. We started challenging people. We started looking at people and sending direct messages going, are you good enough? Have a go. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. We got a lot of support from people like you guys, Run Republic. We got a lot from Any Given Run Day. We got a few other runners sharing our posts. And then Keith Russell got involved and said he'd give us a hand. And sure, if you're running a backyard ultra in Ireland and Keith Russell is willing to give you a hand on it, it's
There's only
always
one
going to
man.
be. Yeah. Like he is the man when it comes to backyard ultras in Ireland. And he was so helpful. He came down, he did the recce with us and gave advice and nutrition and what he would do if he was running that loop as a backyard, if he was involved in the race. And he came down on the day and started it all off for us. And yeah, we ended up with, I think we had 39 or 40 entries signed up for it. But then obviously it was yellow and orange weather warnings all over the country the night before. So we had quite a few people, not quite a few, we had 5 or 6 people that would text us and say, listen, the weather was, I like challenging myself, but the weather's too much, so I'm not going to try it. But it was a yellow warning in Tipperary. It wasn't orange. So we decided we were going to go ahead until it was an orange. So we let it be known that this was still going ahead and we'd see everybody there. And 31 supermen and women turned up on the day, and it was a massive success.
And did you find that there was much pressure on the day, obviously, to get people back, make sure there was someone there every hour to get them going again? What kind of challenges did you have on the day?
I suppose the biggest challenge was having enough marshals, because we needed marshals to make sure that people knew where they were going, first of all, in the loop, because there was a lot of people there that hadn't done the recce. So we wanted to make sure they knew where they were going. So it was setting up that route. But we had done a lot of that the day before. And we'd made sure that we had enough marshals there. Myself and PJ were there at the beginning of every race and at the beginning of every loop and the end of every loop to make sure that these guys were coming back in and making sure. Like, I think myself and PJ, probably there was at least 4 or 5 runners that myself and PJ kind of pushed back into the corral to go again, because we know them and we know there's more in them. They were just getting tired. And we got another couple of loops out of those runners. So because we had done it and done it recently, a lot of people kind of knew, all right, there probably is more in me. So let's give this another go and listen to what's being said. But yeah, it was phenomenal. And there was runners there that we've never heard of and that we've never seen, that I can promise you, within 2 or 3 years, their names will be known in Backyard Ultra. Like, there was some serious runners at that.
Yeah, I've yet to make my debut at a last one standing or a Backyard Ultra, but I think Hellevation might be my debut next year.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make sure and open it early, especially for you. And when we do open it, I'll send you a direct email, and then you have to decide whether you're going to actually click on that link or not. So there's no way of getting out of it now.
And my partner in crime, Paddy, is the man behind all this. He's from Tipperary, so I'll have to rope him in as well.
Absolutely.
Although I'm not too sure how well that'll go.
But you know what's interesting about it? We had people at that, Kev, that, like, my brother has watched me running these things for years, Trevor, and he's never kind of done one. And he said to me, I want to give this a go. And I said, why? He said, I just want to see what it's like. And he, like, the most that Trevor's ever ran probably is 12, 14, 16K. I'm not quite sure, but nothing massive. He went out and ran a marathon. In fact, he ran a little bit more than a marathon, but he done 6 and a bit loops, which to him was absolutely phenomenal. And to me is absolutely phenomenal. And we had people who done 3 or 4. We had people who done 8. We had people who done 10. But they'd never ran a last one standing before. But they got their own personal best on it. So it's not just, and it's important that we say this to people, a Backyard Ultra is not just for people who are going in this to win it. It's not just for people who want to go in and hit a 24-hour or to hit 100 miles or to hit 100K, because that's way out of the league for an awful lot of people who are starting out. It was out of the league for us 4 years ago. So a Backyard Ultra, for me, it's the easiest possible way to reach marathon distance. It's the easiest possible way to reach half marathon distance or 50K distance, if that's what your goal is. And you're in with a group of people that when you come back in, whether it's with 15 minutes rest, whether it's with 5 minutes rest, they will dig in and give you a hand to get you ready to go again. And that's what's phenomenal about Backyard Ultra.
Yeah, it's such a unique event, as you say, like,
massively so.
with the likes of the marathon, you get that help in the marathon, but only for a few seconds.
That's
Whereas,
all.
in something like this, you'll have people getting you up off the chair, giving you
Yeah.
this, giving you that, making
There's
sure.
people
And
pairing up for loops that have never met.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they're pairing up for loops, going, right, come on, we'll do this one together. Come on, and we'll get this one finished together. Like, you don't get that anywhere else.
So are we taking it as read then that Hellevation 2025 is all go?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. We have our we have August coming up now first. We have our top 15 from Hellevation have qualified to run for Team Hellevation, Team Munster, but most of them are not from Munster, so we're calling it Team Hellevation. And they're going to be representing us at the All Ireland. Myself and PJ may also make a guest appearance as wildcards. We'll see. That hasn't been promised yet. We're allowed 5 wildcards each team. So we'll get that over with first in August, and then we'll start planning for Hellevation 2025. But there's absolutely no question. We had people coming in off of that have ran backyards in Dublin, in Belfast, and they've said, look, that's the best ran one we've had, or that's the most challenging one we've had, or that's the most fun we've had at a backyard ultra. I can't wait to come back next year and bring 3 or 4 people with me. So if all of those promises are real, we'll have a huge number next year. And that's the reason we will do it. We're not going to let people down and never do it again. Of course, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I need the people I have spoken to or stuff I've seen online on Instagram and stuff. The people I have done it, the feedback has been really positive. So
yeah,
it sounds like it was a great event. Did you have any expectations in regards to how many hours you were going to be there?
When we looked at the starting lineup, myself and PJ, we knew that there was 4 or 5 names on there that were well capable of doing 24, 25, 30 loops, 35 loops. Like Wayne McGuigan, the eventual winner, I think he's done 36 loops in Florence Court. So we knew that there was runners there that could easily go a long distance. What was interesting for us was, but they're on a lot flatter courses than what Hellevation was on. So we didn't really, but we definitely thought, there's at least 5 or 6 that could do the 24, and then we'll see what happens from there. And I won't lie to you, at about 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning, I said to PJ, this is going to go a lot longer than we thought. I said, there's still 7 runners out there. And I said, there's at least 4 of them can do 30 hours plus. But then it ended very fast. And we were finished at 25. But we were prepared to go longer because we thought it could.
You can go for days or it can just finish real quick.
No, it can keep going. It stays going while there's 2 people running. That's it. As long as 2 people running, if you and I keep running, it will keep on going, and the lights will stay on, the clock will stay on, the stewards will stay standing. We'll all be there for you until there's only 1 man left. That's the idea of Backyard Ultra. And we had 3 people that done the 24th loop. We had Wayne McGuigan. We had Mike Sheehy. I think Mike Sheehy's a Limerick man. Mike, please don't be insulted if you're not. I think you are. And we had Ger Redmond, who is a dub. You may know Ger Redmond. Ger Redmond is the pro Ironman who had never done a backyard ultra in his life, ever. Hadn't trained for a backyard ultra, just decided to give it a go a couple of weeks in advance. They all made it to 24. And then Ger stopped after he finished the 24th loop and stopped. And Mike and Wayne went back out, but Mike returned from the loop. So because Wayne finished a loop alone, that was it. He was the eventual winner. But it was incredible.
Well, it's great to see that it went so well, and it's great to hear that it'll be back for 2025. And I'll do my best to make the start line for 2025. Good. Just in your own plan for the rest of 2024, what have you got on the cards?
I'm resting at the minute. I told PJ and my wife and my family after Belfast that I wasn't running anymore, that I was going to take on race directing full time. But the bug will bite. I know it will. And I'd say I'll be on the starting line of the All Ireland series in August. And I'm not sure about the rest of the year after that. We'll see. But yeah, something will pique my interest and make me go, yeah, I want to give that a go. There's a few things in the pipeline that I'd love to do. I'd love to do some international runs. I'd love to eventually do comrades if I could afford it and get myself in there. There's a few things, but yeah, first up is August and making sure the team Hellevation come away with the trophy at the All Ireland Series.
Well, Tom, it's been great talking to you. Hopefully, we'll see you at an event in the not too distant future. Who knows? We might do a few laps together at some point.
Yeah,
it's great to see Hellevation back by 2025.
Thank you. As I said, I'm aiming to come down to the Wexford Festival of Running anyway in May, probably just as a supporter, but I'll be there in the gear. And if you're struggling, mate, I've absolutely no problem. I'll do a couple of loops with you. Paddy won't mind, and we'll make sure you get what you're doing. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
If I'm struggling, just throw a can of Coke at me or something, or give me
problem. The whole will I open it?
Give me a prod at the back. Whatever keeps me going.
Yeah, no, I'm
Tom
there.
Owens, thanks very much for talking to us today, and
thanks, Kevin.
Wish you all the best with your Hellevation and whatever your next challenge is.
Appreciate it. And look, again, just before we go, I do want to just say thanks to PJ and Ben who crewed for me at the weekend. Without them, without a good crew, you ain't getting to where you're getting. So it's important to make sure that the people who are supporting you know what you're capable of and support you through it. And to family and friends and everybody who gets involved and gets supporting and whether it's supporting financially for any of these charity runs or whether it's just sending you a message the night before a race, it's appreciated. And thanks you for having me on.
Yeah, one thing I've learned over the years is the ultra running community and just the running community in general is superb, but without a good crew, then it makes all the difference. So
no, you ain't happening. I would not have finished any race I've done if it wasn't for my son Ben or the crew that we had at the time. Like there's just no question. You do need them there, and they need to know what you're capable of, and they need to know not to take your mouthing when you're tired and just ignore and just get you back out there. That's what they're there for. But yeah, the whole ultra running community does that for you anyway.
Usually a good crew leads to a good result. So
now you have it.
We wish you the best of luck for 2024, and hopefully I'll see you very soon, Tom.
Thanks a million, Kev. Appreciate it.
That's all for this week's episode of the Run Republic podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave us a review on whichever platform you're listening on. Make sure to follow Run Republic on all of our social media channels and check out runrepublic.com for all the latest running content. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, keep on running.